air. There is no reverse gradient of
know that-
density.
Do you know that warmer temperatures are going to cause a lower density, though? Maybe that's what you're missing.
I know that, but on
So
Earth,
you're going
you
to have
don't
the
have
lower
a
density actually
constant
on the
reverse
ground.
gradient.
You're just not understanding. I'm sorry. I don't know what else to tell you.
I
Just
do
look it up,
understand.
man.
There is no constant reverse gradient. The more
So-
denser stuff is at the bottom and the less denser stuff is at the top. Yes, temperature
Except when you have
can
warmer
reduce.
temperatures on the ground.
Temperature can reduce that gradient, and in some rare conditions also invert that gradient, that there is actually less dense air at the bottom and more dense air on top, which is only a short time effect and which has turbulences. And you see that by very turbulent and disturbed images, because the less dense air is rising up and the heavier air is going down. That's why you see these turbulences. If you have a clear image, you always have the more dense medium at the bottom and the less dense medium at the top, because this is a stable situation.
Okay, so
due to gravity.
Let me just tell you, whenever the air is warmer, that's going to cause a lower density. So if you have the solar radiation heating up the ground, that's going to cause the density to drop.
Correct, and that's why this air is rising upwards and
So you
causing
understand you're
flimmer
going to have the less
or
dense medium on the
changing
ground.
effects in the light.
So you're going to have the less dense medium on the ground because it's warmer.
Yes.
Okay.
And that less dense medium is starting to rise up. That's why you see, for example, Black Swan, where you have these effects super distorted, because
Well,
you
actually,
have
you would have things being
turbulent
shorter.
information there.
You're just not getting it. So I'll just give you some papers.
No, you don't. Please don't. I know them.
You don't want any papers?
No, I know the papers. Thank you.
You should take some papers. I'm just trying to help you. So
Next topic.
yeah, I'll send you these two anyway.
So much standardization going on. What's up, testing man?
Funny enough, temperature also affects ring laser gyroscopes. Did you know that?
Turns out you can standardize the globe. Yeah.
Yes, temperature does definitely affect ring laser gyroscope, because the mediums are expanding and therefore you have a change in the path of the light.
I think if it was actually due to Coriolis, like, it shouldn't be affected by these things. It should be consistent.
Did you standardize that?
Yes, you can actually standardize that, because these ring laser gyroscope have temperature areas where they work, and you have actually ratings on which temperature they have which change or which inaccuracy.
Do you think that, like, if you standardize something, but its potential to sort of flourish into something else, like when you standardize something, you say this is the quotient you're looking for, that sort of prevents creative thought at that point? Everyone just assumes that you can go with a standardization.
They have the standard refraction, and they have extreme refraction they can call on if they really need it. So it's pointless after that. You know, it's like it's a ball no matter what. And then if you have to invoke extreme refraction, we'll do that. You think that's fair, Snooze? Do you think that's okay to do? Just assume it's a ball, and then even if you have to invoke extreme refraction, which is like way out of the ordinary, but you do it on a regular basis, you think that makes sense or no?
Nope.
No, but that's what happens, though. You know.
Nope.
Canagoo? Do you know how
anything to recognize the ball, bro?
Yeah, the ball first, right? It is the ball. I don't want to see your papers. I know your papers, even though everyone in the room knows I have no idea what your papers are. I'm going to say I know your papers. Next question. Come on, Snooze. Sounds so closed-minded. It takes away any value from everything else you might have to offer if you're so closed-minded. We're all just kind of like hoping that, or maybe just thinking there might be a time where one of these extreme anti-flat earthers just goes, hey, well, you know, that is interesting. I guess the other possibility is that it's just the way it seems. It's actually level. We have perspective and things lower in the distance, and there's all these kind of weather effects that make it different. You know, it could totally, you know, match a flat earth. No, we know exactly what a flat earth would do, and it doesn't match. Like they figured that out. Like they actually know what happened on a flat earth. Like they have some kind of equation for perspective that they keep asking us for.
It's like a religion to them.
Absolutely. But more like a
Dude.
cult, because they're going around like beating people up and trying to,
This is the thing.
trying to beat people up and brainwash them into their own way of thinking, so they feel better about themselves for believing in something completely ridiculous.
They believe in it so much that they can't suspend their beliefs long enough to consider that there could be something else that they're not considering and even looking into it. Look at the paper.
Yep. I already know your papers. Next question. Come on, Snooze. You lost right there. Hey, interesting that you're coming up with all this great information, though, Taylor. And I know you were about to get into the stuff you were just talking about with Coriolis, but
Hear you,
I don't
hear
think
you.
you're going to have any ears with the baller that just wants to like believe what he already believes instead of trying to actually open his mind up to other possibilities.
The problem is, though, the answer is never because the Earth is flat. It's always because of something else.
What do you mean?
Right? When we come with answers, we tell you the reason. Well, we can explain this because of the Earth being a globe. So that's my crux.
But you can't explain anything with Earth being like absolutely nothing works, bro. That's the funny thing. You think you have answers to everything and nothing works. Not one thing.
Hold on, I'll give you an example. So
It's all just interpretations.
Are you telling me on an Earth that rotates, there wouldn't be two? There wouldn't be a north and south pole, which stars would rotate around?
Well, I mean, all that is interpretation, right? It could just be exactly
No, it's
what
not
it seems like.
interpretation. It's a simple
Well,
fact of a spinning
you don't experience
ball.
moving, right? You don't experience curvature and you don't experience motion. Those are the two things you would need to have that make sense. You don't even have that. You don't have anything like, I mean, it's obviously that, stationary plane, as far as you can tell. Anyone with intellectual integrity admits that. So
Would you have star
starting
trails?
from there, we're going to
Would you
start
have-
with a premise that like you're moving and it's spherical when it seems like the
I
exact
think everything's
opposite.
moving. I don't think anything's stationary. I think
I don't
everything's
think
moving.
so either. To some degree, that's true, vibrations and all that, but that's not what I'm talking about. You know that. Talking about the
Well, I mean-
spherical 1,000 mile an hour at the equator spinning that you think is slow, right? I mean, that's just silly, really.
Well, it's
think about it.
slow. I mean, I think it's slow.
Slow compared to what?
Compared to
Hey, 50 miles
the
an hour is 1,000 miles an hour slow compared to 50 miles an hour?
Well, this is what I was trying to get you to understand earlier. Is like you're using these reference, or last time I talked to you, is like you're using these reference points. Like we're moving 1,000 miles per hour, 1,000 miles an hour in reference to what? In reference to a pole. In reference to a pole. Well, how far is the pole from me? How far is the pole from where I'm at in North America?
But
how many miles away?
Way, it's 1,000 miles per hour difference, right? That's what the ball
Yes,
model
but
says.
how does it? But how does that make sense in your head to compare 1,000 miles an hour in reference to something I can't even see?
Well, like say you lived your whole life. Let's say you lived your whole life at Antarctica. Let's say you lived your whole life and real quick in an area right near the North Pole, where you didn't have any spinning, and your whole life is like you're accustomed to like hardly spinning at all because the miles per hour is very, very slow. Now, if you took a jet, yeah, but not at 1,000 miles an hour, you'd be spinning at like 20 or 50 or 100, right? Now, if you moved to the equator, do you think there'd be an adjustment period whatsoever?
Why would there be?
Now because you're spinning at 900 miles per hour faster than you've been used to your whole life.
But that's in reference to something 1,000 miles
50.
away.
50.
No,
Since
it's literally 900
second.
miles an hour faster. Literally.
New perspective.
Just
like, let me jump in here. Just like, this is just a
Go
commentary. Since you guys started this conversation, you've actually moved about 20,000 kilometers in spatial time.
Right.
Exactly,
Literally.
but that doesn't affect me.
Exactly.
It's
you
like
have no idea.
You don't know about it. Like, you traveled 20,000 kilometers.
You just assume it happened.
Just like in the course of this conversation, you've traveled 20,000 kilometers. Like, that's quite an accomplishment. Are you happy with that? Like,
I'm happy with
over a day, you'd be moving 12 million miles a day. 12 million miles in different space-time coordinates. 12 million miles every single day.
The 12 inch
Totally
are
ion
reference
that.
things I can't see, touch, feel, hear. Like it's not. It's kind of like if I took out like a rifle, like a 50 cal, and I shot a 50 cal, and let's just say it was a really fast 50 cal, and it you shoot it and it starts traveling 1,000,000 miles an hour, and I'm like, man, you just moved 1,000,000 miles in reference to that bullet, in 1 second. Like that's crazy. How could that be possible?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
this is the point though, 50.
Wait, what
Like
was your point there?
you're expected to believe in something, right? That goes complete. You are basically shooting across the galaxy in a like faster than a speeding bullet, and then you're expanding out into
Oh,
nothingness.
way faster,
All,
millions of times faster.
like it's kind of crazy. So the point is like, so wait up.
With
The
no
Earth
container.
is like the Earth is rotating at a certain rate, right? And you're moving with the sun at the same time, and then the galaxy itself is moving juxtaposed to other galaxies. Like you're in a cosmic fucking shooting ground.
Hey,
I
It's
know.
remember
nonsense.
when hey, Tarek, remember when you used to believe it? I mean, we all have to remember. We used to think that, and that
Oh, dude,
I think
yeah,
there was
for
like
sure.
a sense where you like elevate your mind to this like place where like you feel like, oh, I just have to be able to see the bigger picture, and it's all moving in conjunction at this fluid rate. And of course, we're so small. There's no way we could realize that it's going in all these different directions at this many miles per hour. The numbers are so huge. I remember like that used to make sense to me, and it's so funny when you realize that it's not the case. It can't be, in fact,
Well,
literally can't
because
be
you're told that life,
for
like
real reasons.
inherently, you're told that life shouldn't make sense to you, or
Yeah.
the existence of nature. And look, inherently, actually, that does make that it does resound true. I still, despite my sort of alternative resolution now, have not been able to manage the notion of like actually what makes sense. I think that's the mystery of life. However,
Yeah.
this notion that you're traveling through millions of miles an
Yeah,
hour,
and
Right.
like,
But they'll
why would
yeah,
I
say
do
and
it?
because you don't
when you
understand
actually
it.
hang on a second now, when you actually everybody's talking, everybody wants to talk. When you actually realize and you look at the numbers, especially in my case, I was embarrassed because I realized the ramification of the mistake I made by trusting those numbers without actually trying to validate them. So that's what happened to me in 2015 when I woke up as a flat earther.
Yeah.
I thought, wow. And I used to believe in all this stuff. This is ridiculous. Look at how stupid was I?
And it's not just
Wow.
incredulity. Like it literally wouldn't be the case. There's many reasons we can show it's not the case. We can totally make very good arguments that there's no way that that's happening. And you start with the base axioms of your reality before you would just cross that off. And they made it so all of that, believing in all of that, is how you would identify as intelligent. They made that equivalent with being an intelligent person, knowing that you're in this speeding, space ball with no container going through the galaxy, like at this different
Yeah,
speed.
for sure. The
So
Why do
funny.
you?
equivocation of the notion of the globe with intelligence and being smart is a
Yeah.
very that's the real clinker, man. That's like where they folded the
Oh,
sheet in upon itself.
yeah.
I
They
really
got us.
appreciate that notion.
They really
Like that's
got
what
us,
they did
man.
psychologically. Yeah.
Yep.
I don't understand why you
Smart,
want me to
smart is
throw
stupid and
away
stupid is
my other
smart.
senses, though. Why do I why do I have to throw away my eyeballs and just listen to my inner ear?
It's not, well, you're trying to make an extreme example of what we're saying.
Inner
It
ear?
doesn't mean
You can't.
just
Yeah,
because,
he's saying
There's no.
trust
yeah.
your senses.
You can't
Trust your
sense it, bro.
I'm not saying only trust your senses, but don't exclude your senses as any measurement of what the hell is going on. You can't just
not
like
including
cross
my.
them all off because they're not always dependable. Doesn't mean they're never dependable.
I'm not. I'm including all my senses together, right?
Okay,
So
so
I'm including.
what sense of the what's your direct experience? What is self-evident about being on a spinning ball without using interpretations of the sky?
So I'm not allowed to use half of the planet that I live on.
What do you
That
mean?
seems
The sky is not the planet.
the
So the
sky is.
sky's moving, therefore you think you're moving. Is that it?
I
But that's the
mean,
only
Or
way
you
that
are?
he can justify it in his mind. There's nothing self-evident about being on a spinning ball. Not one thing he can
yeah,
name.
without
Like just
looking
being
at
born here without the
without
story or
that's
the interpretations. Without
that's
that, you'd have to have one thing that would be
that.
self-evident. You would think that your
That's like
reality
saying, like if
comes.
you're on like a. That's like saying if you're on a modern day train, tell me you're moving without looking at the windshield.
Dude, that's such
Does
a
seem-
like a grade school example. Like, okay,
No,
just
it's
because you can
not.
be on
It's
one linear direction,
actually
because you can go
perfect.
one linear direction, and it
I
kind of
can't look
seems
up
like
the
you're
wind channel.
stationary.
Why can't I look
Doesn't
up the
include
wind
millions of miles per hour and thousands of different rotations and different directions and changes of moment. I mean, it's just all so silly, bro.
There's no changes of
Realize
momentum.
What does
there
what does
is.
the
It
globe
changes in
science say
acceleration.
about the moon? What does the globe science say about how the moon goes around? That as we're moving in space, does it adhere to a strict pattern of circular, or does it speed up and slow down? Because if it speeds up and slow down, then that's a really good practical way to show kids nowadays. Is what I do. I say, go ahead and start. I'm gonna start walking. I want you to walk around me, and I want to disprove the globe science by
There you go.
their theory that it. Of course, you have to speed up and slow down, and you would
Yeah.
feel that.
And the elliptical orbits on top of that.
I love how you guys are just doing like physics by like intuition.
No,
Once you
no,
do,
physics.
once you look
Physics.
at
There's
like,
two different things with physics. It's kinematics, right? All the Kepler stuff is just kinematics. It's just math. It's
we
just a
know the
reverse
dynamics
engineered way
now.
of. There's no dynamics at all, including the masses of all the planets. You don't even have three bodies, bro.
You're
Wow.
tripping, dude.
What do you mean I'm
You
tripping?
don't have three bodies, bro. You literally don't have three bodies.
We've
And there's
saw
no dynamics. You don't even have three bodies kinematically.
in what respect?
The orbits.
You mean okay? So if I show you the kinematic equations and the dynamic equations, and you're gonna say
You're
what?
gonna use you're gonna use Lagrange points.
I'm not sure exactly what I'm gonna use,
Yeah,
but
that's what they try to do. It's ridiculous.
is that a problem?
Yeah, it is kind of like
Lagrange
parking
points?
spaces.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What's the
it's
deal
like
with
little like
Lagrange
voids.
points? I'm not sure.
It's like little
I'm
parking
not
spaces
familiar.
in space. It's like little like stable areas that they use for the math to work out, and they say it's Lagrange points. It's like a way of mathematically justifying things like the three
I
body
see.
problem.
Well, I thought you couldn't.
I mean,
I thought you
they always
couldn't.
call it something.
But
There's no dynamics to it anyway, so it wouldn't matter. You can do whatever you want with math. Doesn't prove anything.
well, then why are you asking for? Then why are you talking shit saying you can't get the kinematics for it?
I'm
Or I
saying
mean,
the dynamics are the important part. The dynamics would have to be included for any of that to make any sense in the real world.
but you just said you can do anything with math.
You could do anything with math, but when you add the masses, right, then you have the real relationship between moving bodies in relation to each other, right? The real relationship, like just like the planes that we were talking about, bro. You can kinematically think in your mind that it doesn't matter that I flew from the North Pole to the equator. There's an eastward vector that has to be accounted for that I don't have to even think about. The air is going to do it, and I can mathematically just pretend the air is doing it, even though the air moves in all directions, and it might be moving heavier in one direction that day, and there's all these variables. Somehow, mathematically, we're just going to cancel all that out and say that it's already in sync, even though it was never supposed to be in sync because the atmosphere isn't even in sync itself. The atmosphere is not even in sync, but then they want the atmosphere to make it perfectly in sync. So there's no dynamics there. You can just kinematically do it mathematically and say it works. But if you
I
add the
was,
dynamics, you're screwed.
I was going to ask this question earlier when they were talking about airstreams and everything, but how do are pilots trained to know where to go to certain airstreams that are faster or slower?
Right. Are they trained? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, because the way they
Oh,
talk about it is like all the pilots know exactly where to go and how to jump in that jet stream and kick it.
yeah. When they get out of the jet stream, because the jet stream is supposed to go like up to 200 or more faster than the speed of the Earth, the rotation of the
Right,
Earth. So then when you
right, and
jump
all
out
that.
of it, all you have to do is bring a camera with you, stick the camera out the window. And when you jump out of that airstream, you're going to be going 200 miles per hour faster than the Earth. You'll be out of sync with the Earth, and you can just put the camera on the Earth and show that it's moving at a separate rate than your plane eastward.
I was curious on what they actually train the pilots
Oh yeah, there's
and
just like an automatic place that they know to go to, and they hit those coordinates. I
yeah,
don't
that's
know
what I
how
was.
I don't know how stable they are if they move
And it's
or whatever.
altitude thing or what? No, I didn't know.
It's a
That's what I was asking.
firmament thing, I think. I think it's a firmament thing, like
Like,
the circular vortexual nature of everything inside this container we're in.
The
So
dome of reality. Can we call it that from now on? The dome of reality? I don't
But
know.
I don't know if Taylor's still here, but she was talking earlier about all the stuff that she found with the vortex and the magnetic frequencies and all these things that can totally account for all of the stuff that the globe claims is rotation. In fact, way better because we know we're not on a moving surface that's spherical. We know that now, so it's over. For people that like are moving on, I guess. I don't even consider those as possibilities anymore.
Okay, so I'm sitting here staring at the equations for the forces of planetary motions.
Kepler's equations.
I'll post them in chat. No, not Kepler's equations. These are his basically solutions solved using forces.
Are the masses included?
This is a generalized form. If you want to put the masses in, put them in.
No. That's what they need to have. For you to call it dynamics, you need the masses.
No, I don't.
Okay, you can say that, but you're wrong.
You can say it, but you're wrong too. I'm looking at. I'm
You
looking
can
at.
say I'm wrong, but I know I'm not. So.
Looking at a textbook from Purdue. Whose word am I going to take? Yours or the textbook from Purdue?
Dude, take that word, man. Just think it works, man. Just go ahead. I don't care if you think it works. Not going to
Textbooks
prove
are
to me it doesn't.
So you're telling me if I put the masses in and I show you that, you're going to say, okay, you agree?
Oh, you're gonna go put the masses in? I'd like to see you
I'm
do
saying
that.
if I do that, where's that going to get it? So I have a feeling that you're going to
You really think they know how much
you're going to move
Jupiter
the
weighs?
goalpost again because
Let me just ask you this:
originally
How
you
did they
told me that
figure
these
out? How did they
equations
figure out
didn't
what?
exist.
Let me
Then
ask
I
you this:
found the
You're gonna put.
equations, and now you're telling me that they're not valid unless there's masses in them. So I'm
Well,
guessing you're gonna move the
that's what
goalpost
makes the
again.
dynamics. When you add the masses in, that we have dynamics because it actually has to take into account the real mass of the body in relation to another mass of the body, and then you have to explain the force that actually holds them all together anyway, which is just an assumption or it doesn't matter. You could go ahead and put the masses in, but how did they figure out how much
This is
Jupiter?
based on
How did they
Newtonian
figure out how much Jupiter weighs? Let me ask you that. How did they
uh,
figure that out?
in reference to other masses.
I mean, what? I mean, like, well, let's say it's a gas planet. How did they figure out how much the gas planet weighs?
Gas still has weight.
Right, but how did they figure out how much that weight was
Such a good
for each
question, bro.
planet?
In reference to
Relative to
I don't know
relativity of the
if
relative, like, so, like, the sun and the earth and the moon, and sort of relative to your notion of understanding what material matter is. Like, it's all
Well,
relative to relativity. Like,
yeah,
it's
it's all
crazy.
reverse
well,
engineered. Like
so
this
for
mass would
instance,
have to
Yeah, for
be
sure.
about this. It would have to be
Yeah.
about this mass for
so,
us to believe that it could possibly work with the kinematic setup. We're not going to
so
add
for
that in because we can't even do three bodies. But this is the mass for now as a placeholder.
well, this one does three masses, and so you would solve for these equations, right? You would have you would know the radius or the semi-elliptical radius of the orbit, right? You'd get estimates, right? You're never gonna get perfection, so you'd basically solve for an unknown. The unknown would be the mass of the planet. So you have all the other variables known,
There you go.
right?
Exactly right.
And then
Right. So
you
they're like
solve for
all the
the
other
you solve for
variables,
the
all the other assumptions in place with the movements and everything else. Then you can add that mass because it has to be within a range of some sort to think that it's possibly on the outskirts or in, closer to the sun or whatever they've come up with. It's reverse engineered.
But what's wrong with reverse engineering?
Well, that's the only way that you can even conceptualize anything, right? That's true. What is wrong with it? There's nothing
I mean,
wrong with it.
if I
But
work
to
for a
call it a
company,
prediction, when it's reverse engineered is not accurate.
but what's wrong with
Because
reverse
you're not
engineering?
coming up with a prediction and saying this is what's going to happen if we're on a ball. We're saying if we're on a ball, this is what will happen because we've figured out the cycles and we know what happens, right? Even though it feels stationary and looks like it's planar, we can just
Unless
say
you
it's
look
a
at the
ball, and
window.
then how do we have to change the math to make it a ball and spinning around the Earth? And we'll just
There's
do
no math that's
that
been
math,
changed. What math has been changed?
dude. Ugh. Let me ask you this: hypothetical. I have to go soon. There's a hypothetical. Like, let's say that we talked through the plane argument, and let's just say, just for fun, like you actually realize there's no way that the plane would be in sync with the Earth because it doesn't have the eastward vector accelerating it to the same speed as the Earth, and it couldn't treat the Earth as stationary. Let's just say you agreed with me on that. Would any of this planetary motion make any difference after you realized planes couldn't even land? Wouldn't you just be like, oh, it can't be a ball if planes can't even land, right?
Well, that doesn't make any sense to me. I don't think there's any problem with planes landing on a.
I'm saying hypothetical. Saying hypothetically, if you agreed with me, then this orbital stuff would just seem like nonsense, right? If you agree that
No, not
planes can't
really.
even land, that would kind
Yeah,
of
if
end
you
it
agree with
for
you
you.
and don't understand any relative motion, yeah, then of course you're right. But
Oh,
relative motion
Xanax
is a real thing. Yeah.
Xanax
Well,
here. We're talking
well,
about
him
planes.
here.
Is Xanax coming to fight?
let me just give you another.
Wish I had more
Let me
time.
give you another example of some stuff we can explain and see what you think. All right. So the globe can explain, like we said, star trails, pulsars, 24-hour sun in the north and south now. Right. The difference in length, in latitude as you move north and south. Right. As you move
Did you just
south,
say pulsars? You can explain
pulsar,
pulsars?
pulsars.
You can explain
Like the idea of two
pulsars.
poles.
Yes,
The idea
on
of
the
two poles
globe,
is
you
what
would
he
expect two
means.
pole stars, one at the North Pole and one
Okay.
at the South Pole,
Cool.
right? And you star trails, right? Explain star trails as well. 24-hour sun in the North and South poles. Difference in weight at the equator versus the poles. That's another experiment they did while they were down at the South Pole. Different stars in different hemispheres, right? And the background stars shift 1 degree, or roughly 1 degree per day, right? So it takes us 365 days to travel 360 degrees. So our background star frame changes in reference
So
to that.
objectively, are
Roughly,
these the characteristics of the sky that you're talking about? They're not
these
that
are
of the ground?
characteristics. They're characteristics of the Earth in reference to the sky. So two things.
All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
cool.
One
Yeah.
more hypothetical. Wouldn't it be great, 50, if you had all of that, like, going for the wall, and then you had like one self-evident thing, like this one thing about your direct experience that also told you you're on a spinning sphere,
These
right?
are all
There was
self-evident.
one thing that was self-evident about your direct experience, not your interpretations of the sky. So one thing about your direct experience that you wouldn't have to be told anything about space to know for yourself as a human being, right? There was one thing to add in it. It would be the perfect model. It's like,
So you
and we know
ignore
we're on a ball
my
because like
eyes.
the trees are always like, blowing to the east because of the
Yeah.
tangential velocity of the atmosphere. We can always see that little breeze to the east because that's the general direction the plane needs to accelerate. So it's in sync with the Earth. That makes sense. The trees all blow a little bit eastward all the time. That would make
But
sense.
like, so
Something like
what's interesting, right? What is it kind of interesting is that the assumption from the evolutionary point of view is that you shouldn't assume that you would feel such a thing. However, why would it assume that, like within evolution, that you wouldn't be able to feel the orbit of the thing that you necessarily evolved like from, as far as the
that was my
cosmos
point
goes,
about
right?
living at the North Pole
Yeah,
and moving to the equator. Like you wouldn't have any adjustment period at all. You're moving literally 900 miles an hour faster, and you're just like, oh, it feels just like the same because it's 15 degrees an hour.
Well, it's
It's
the
literally
same because
900
the
miles
thing
per
you're
hour faster.
referencing is thousands of miles away and has really no relevance on what you're feeling.
but
What are you
but why
talking
would you
about?
assume that
You move to
evolution
the
would
equator.
derive
Stop.
you?
You move
Why
there, right?
why would you assume that you've evolved yourself into in a means of habitation such that you
Insensitive
cannot
human
sort of
being.
resolve any of that?
Yeah, like nothing at
Resolve.
all.
You can resolve. You can resolve pretty much all of it except the motion of
No,
a massive
it's only
object.
through interpretation. It's only through interpretation, dude. Like it's nothing of your physical experience in the world.
Not
It's
one
Yeah,
purely
bit.
through
sure it
like a
is. Sure it
mathematic.
is.
Like it happens
Sure it
through
is.
your imagination. This is
What's
this
In
is the
this same.
craziest thing, dude. Like
the
So
you
one
are a
self-evident thing?
chimpanzee with an imagination that is imagining things that are go beyond your experiential realm. Like
okay. Well,
this
so if
is
I
this
was
is
on
why
a
people like films
Monkey,
and
monkey
movies and
read,
all the rest
monkey
of it.
repeat.
if I was on a high speed train and
One
I
linear
looked out the
direction.
window and I could tell I was moving by looking out the window, why is that not valid in my
Another
case?
grade. You keep
No.
bringing up the grade school example of like, okay, just because you can go one linear direction, that means that all of these motions and your whole total experience would have no sense
You could be
whatsoever.
going around a
In
curve
fact, it
on
would
a high
seem
speed
like the
train.
exact opposite. It would seem completely stationary no movement whatsoever. It feels like it's just
completely
stationary
stationary.
on a level plane. The sky moves, and it's actually not that at all. You're the one moving, even though there's not one self-evident thing about that except for your interpretation of the sky. That is ridiculous.
Do you know that you cannot detect motion with your senses? You can only detect
Acceleration, blah
changes
blah.
in
We have been
motion.
through this. Acceleration, yeah. We've talked about this.
Now,
We all these different speeds. Okay,
No,
go through
but
the whole
why?
thing. I'm
Okay,
not
so
a 2015 flat
as far
earther.
as
Come on.
the evolutionary sort of interpretation is concerned, like, why would you not be able to interpret that?
why would you? What does it make any sense? Changes in motion you can detect, acceleration, deceleration you can detect, but you cannot detect motion itself because there is nowhere or no situation in normal nature where you're just moving without acceleration or deacceleration.
Yeah, we just talked about
So,
this.
for example,
Acceleration is
if you are
required
in the
for
train,
elliptical orbits. Elliptical orbits require acceleration and change of speed. And if you just walk around, if you're orbiting something, that's going to cause a circular motion, which you would have to speed up and change. And you make the numbers so big that it seems so gradual, and you can just believe that it happens. And it's so slight that there's just no reason to think that you would feel that slight acceleration, even though it's there and it happens all the time. It's just ridiculous, bro.
But it's not changing.
Only a kinematic idea. It's not at all
You
dynamic.
need to take like a high school level physics course.
That's what you're trying
you
to
are
give me right now. Like you're saying it's smart if you believe this bullshit. That's the
Well,
funny point you just made
I mean,
earlier.
I didn't know.
back to the train example. If you could detect motion, if you are in a train, I give you that you see that you feel the vibration, that you are kind of moving or agitated in general. But if you close your eyes and you turn around, do you know in which direction this train is moving? If you would feel motion,
You
you
don't have
would
to go
also
back
be
to the
able to
train
feel the
example, dude.
direction of that motion.
If that really convinces you, if that's good enough for you, then good, man. Just the train. That's
I mean,
all you need.
the train
Good enough for
is
you?
moving pretty fast compared to our
Yeah, pretty
normality.
fast.
So,
Yeah,
but you
millions of
cannot
miles per
detect
hour
the
would be even
direction.
faster, right? Millions of miles. We don't even know what the body would do at like 1,000 miles an hour on a regular basis. Like literally, if that were happening. I mean, if we were on a
Just
ball, and I guess there'd be
get around this.
nothing happening. But think about it. Think about 1,000 miles an hour with no container spinning through the fucking space at millions of miles an hour. It's so stupid, bro. It's not because I'm incredulous. It's because it
You are
literally is stupid.
you're not even capable of understanding that you're using a reference point thousands of miles away from you.
No, I'm saying
You're
if you
using a
moved
reference
1,000
point
miles,
of
if
basically
you
being able to
moved to the
like
equator,
total through space, like an empty space. That is not our reference point, man. Here in the world,
I'm
you
not
actually
using
moving
like
he's
the
vacuum
saying
that
point
I'm
you're
not
hurtling
besides.
capable of
through.
realizing that the North Pole is 1,000 miles away from the
That's cool.
equator, and I don't realize how far away they are. So it shouldn't
Well,
make
I
a
mean,
difference because it took you so long to get there. You're going to get used to it along the way. And
no,
900
I'm
miles
talking
an
about.
hour, that's not a big deal for your body to get used to.
Well,
No,
you've never been to the
900
North
miles an
Pole.
hour.
You lived in North America your whole life, so it's a hold on.
Dude, you
It's
lived on Earth your entire life, and now you're
yes. Yeah.
invoking something like extraterrestrial.
I'm not
Like, don't
invoking
get
anything
started. Like,
extraterrestrial. Hold on. Just think about
Okay,
this.
wait.
It's
Let me
amazing.
just
It's
ask you this.
amazing to
Let's say
you.
you were able to teleport from the North Pole to the equator,
You can't.
right? And
Why
all
would
of a
we?
sudden, let's
Why
say
are we
you
talking
could.
about
Those are
something that's not
hypotheticals. That's a
possible?
sign of intelligence to use hypotheticals to understand the point.
Okay.
If you were able to teleport there, would there be an adjustment? Would there be like a jolt? Because you'd be like literally moving 900 miles an hour immediately, right? It would be crazy, right?
In reference to something 1,000 miles away,
I don't care what's
The
in
funny
reference to.
thing
It's
is that
literally 900 miles an hour faster.
but
the
not in
funny thing
reference
is
to the
that you
ground.
invoke the changes, the acceleration due to the rotation of the Earth, and that we should feel that acceleration. The funny thing is we can measure it. We can measure the change in weight
By
due to
looking at
the
the sky.
rotation of the Earth, and that has been done multiple times, even live streamed on YouTube. And the only thing that you respond to
Can you
that measurement of changes of
measure the
weight is
curvature, please?
nah.
Can you measure the
The
curvature?
centrifugal difference.
Can you measure the
It's like
curvature before all this spinning? The
it's
curvature,
like
please.
Of
The
course,
We
it's
can
curvature,
like
measure the
please.
it's like the weight.
curvature,
It's
we
like
can measure the
if you had
centripetal forces, we
the
can
difference
measure
in
the
weight.
rotation, we can measure everything. And the only response from your side is nah.
What the
No,
heck is
like
going on?
ha ha ha
Oh,
ha,
you
not
haven't
nah.
presented anything.
Ha ha, more
Nothing's
like
been
ha ha.
presented. Nothing's been presented by your side. You mentioned the curvature, but they don't present it, ladies and gentlemen. And they scream at the top of their voice about the globe like it exists, and it doesn't exist. And I didn't care for the tone Snooze was using against Tayler, because he was shouting as if the globe was a real thing, and it's established. It has not been established.
He
It
was
does not
handling him.
exist, and that's why we're here. Thank you very much.
It's
Get on
like
with
if you
it.
had a
Hurry up.
heavy
Where's the
wallet, the
curvature?
difference. Hey Jen, the difference that they say that would be like at the centrifugal weight difference that they're talking about at the equator is like if you had a heavy wallet in your pocket rather than not having a heavy wallet. Like it's very minuscule, right? And they're saying that
Still
that's
measurable. Still measurable.
It's
And
measurable. So it
measures.
makes
very
it,
childish.
just like
Your
being on a train in
calculation.
one direction. It's just the same thing as going several different directions at
You can
miles
also
an
see
hour.
the ISS. Have you ever like looked out at night
There we
sky and
go with the
seen the
ISS. That's
ISS?
a key point. That's a key figure. A key point. They needed
I
that.
want to hear
They
your
needed
best
that.
evidence for the globe.
Okay, so I told you. So we got.
Pick one.
A list.
Pick
I got a
one.
list.
All right, you take over. I gotta go, Taylor. I'm gonna
Well,
listen.
my best evidence is that we can explain so many things with the notion
Thank
that
you.
the
New
Earth is a
perspective. Thank you.
tilted, rotating globe. So I can explain like
One.
one a shadow of the of lunar eclipses.
Shadows of lunar eclipses.
Yes, solar
When
eclipses.
it turns red.
Well, black, red. Yeah, I'm sure you've seen. There's two. There's been two in North America over the past like 10 years. Have you seen one?
Yeah, what yes, I have. Why does it turn red?
It turns red because the same reason that it turns red whenever the sun's
Refraction.
yeah, same reason it turns red whenever the sun's hitting the horizon. The longer wavelengths get filtered out.
This is bleeding.
Is that
So
your
I mean,
best evidence for the globe?
I'm sorry.
Doesn't
That's the
prove
best evidence for the
that
globe?
doesn't prove the Earth is a
Well,
globe, by the way.
like I said, the
That's
best
happening
evidence
on a flat
is
Earth.
that
That
it can.
happens on a flat Earth. What you describe doesn't
Well, let
describe
me
the
talk
curvature of the Earth.
to her for a second,
That's
Jen.
not proof of Earth.
So, like I said,
Okay.
my best evidence is that so many things can be explained by the notion that the Earth is a tilted, rotating globe. So you can explain the shadows of lunar eclipses, solar eclipses. We can explain boats over the horizon. We can explain typical distances to the horizon. That's why the black swan was such a large deal. It was made to be out to be such a large deal. Star trails can be explained. Pole stars can be explained. 24-hour sun in the north and south poles can be explained. Different lengths between longitudes as you move south. And then if you're on the regular AE map, the latitudes shouldn't get further apart, yet they
No,
do.
I
So
said pick one, and I meant something that's mutually exclusive.
well, it's not
Something
one. It's
mutually
the
exclusive.
strongest thing is that they all point to the same thing. There isn't one.
So there
It's
isn't
all
one.
you can't look at them.
What's
You
the
can't
best
look at them.
evidence?
Ladies
You
and
can't.
gentlemen, please note that the curvature wasn't mentioned. The curvature, which is the key foundation for the globe, was not mentioned because you have to have curvature. You can't talk
Jin, the
about any of the
question
other
You can
things
put that number
without
one
curvature
curvature.
first.
We can put number
Sorry.
one
Jin, the
curvature.
question was a different one. The question was, what can you explain with the rotation of the Earth? And
Hmm.
curvature is not something you can
That was not the
explain with the
question.
I said,
rotation
That
of
what's
was
your
the
not
best
the
Earth.
evidence of
You
a
question.
globe?
That was
misinterpreted the
not the
question.
question. That was not the
But Jin,
question. That was
I would be
not
interested
the
in
question.
Jin, I would be interested in your explanation of how lunar eclipses work on a flat plane. That is really an interesting thing.
He's just gonna say he doesn't know. But I want to finish my list. Just let me finish my list, and then you can pick it apart if you want to. You can tell me whatever's bunk.
That's
Okay,
what I'm good.
different stars in different hemispheres. Right. These are all explained by the globe.
Are you
These are
reading
all.
this?
Yeah, I've managed this list over the years. So this is, like I said, you would have, these are things that would have to experience if the Earth were a tilted,
No.
rotating globe, right? No,
No.
do you disagree with any of these?
Yeah.
Okay, so what's wrong? You wouldn't see a shadow of lunar eclipses on with the globe?
Dude, the moon phases do not prove the shape of the Earth.
I'm talking about the shadow.
Yeah, whatever the moon's doing, that's just irrelevant.
The shadow that crosses the moon.
Yeah, the moon phases aren't to do with the shape of the Earth.
The circular shadow that crosses the moon.
The
What's
moon phases has
what's
nothing to do with the lunar eclipse. He was talking about the lunar eclipse and the shadow on the moon, not the
Wouldn't a
moon phase.
ball casting a shadow another ball cause a different type of eclipse, like an S-shaped instead of a C-shaped curve? Because you have a
no,
sphere casting a shadow another sphere.
no. You still get you still
That
get a
hard line
sharp. Yeah,
wouldn't
you
be
still
there.
get that hard line. You can do it in your room. Go get
Two
a
In
soccer
balls.
ball and a
proportion?
basketball.
Yeah, you need a proportion though, by the way.
Grab yourself
Well,
a
you
I
couple
could
of
want to see
balls
that
and spin
modeled
on
you could
that
out.
do that.
thing.
I want
And
to
you
see
could
that
do that.
modeled out body in proportion. But anyway, I was just asking for one piece of mutually exclusive evidence because you can just name stuff all day long. It's like irrelevant.
Okay, so you think it's irrelevant that the shadow cast on the moon is coming from a circular object? I don't know why you would say that's irrelevant. Okay, solar eclipses. I'm just saying
Solar
this.
eclipses.
This is like a secondary point. Like this just kind of goes towards our model. I'll give you. We'll pass on this one. Okay.
I mean,
Both over
isn't
the.
it ironic with a solar eclipse that the sun and the moon are the same exact size in the sky to even cause that, or like 1% bigger? Like, but they happen to be, one happens to be 400 times bigger and one happens to be
They're not exactly the
400
same.
times further away at the same time. You don't think it's a little ironic?
You think
The
it's a
fact
little
that we even
ironic
have
that the
eclipse?
15-degree drift measured is just happens to be just
That was a deflection.
perturbation? What I'm just saying. No, there's things that match up, and I mean, I think that's God's design. I think God designed it that way. It's cool. It's a cool design.
He
Yeah.
invokes God.
By the way,
He invokes God.
hang on.
All of a sudden.
Hang on a minute. By the way, for your information, a straight edge can cause a curved line on a spherical ball. A straight edge can do that. You didn't know that, but that can happen. Can cause a shadow that's curved. Okay, a straight edge. So you're wrong
Okay,
with that. That
I'd like to
first
see
one
that.
is no good. That's
Oh,
been debunked.
Oh,
so
That's
that's
you're
been
saying
wrong.
the
That's
sun,
debunked.
the
wrong,
sun is
Jin.
under the flat
Jin,
Earth?
that's wrong if you look from the straight edge. If you look from the straight edge, it's definitely straight
Unfortunately,
on the ball. If you look from a different direction, the curvature of the ball will show that straight shadow curved. But we are looking from the Earth, so
ladies and
there
gentlemen,
must be something
snooze is wrong.
else.
Ladies and gentlemen, snooze is wrong. Snooze is wrong in this because you can indeed take a straight edge and cast a shadow onto a spherical ball that will be spherical. Okay, so the idea that the Earth is causing a curved shadow, that's debunked. It's no good. It's a flat Earth we live on. So let's get rid of that one. That's no good. Okay,
It's still,
next.
but it's
What's your
still
next proof?
even if I give you that, it's still predicted by our three-dimensional model of the solar system. We know when it's going to happen. So I don't know how you could throw that away. That seems disingenuous. That's
That's
one.
post prediction,
That's a
ladies
check.
and
That's
gentlemen.
a check mark
Post
for us.
prediction is not predicting. Post
Okay, so
prediction. No, I'm going to address that point. Post predicting is not prediction because you're
so
going by
post predict.
patterns that have happened years ago, so you can predict forward. That's not a. It's not a wow. It's not fantastic. It's rather boring. That's a no good as well.
Solar
That doesn't prove
eclipses.
shape. Post prediction does not prove shape. Not
Solar
prove shape.
eclipses are
Okay?
extremely hard to predict. If you ever look at the
It
modeling of
doesn't
solar
prove
eclipses,
shape. Doesn't
very
prove shape. Shape.
no, but
Shape.
it's a check mark
Man.
in our area. Okay, so second one, boats over the horizon. So if the Earth were a sphere, you would expect to see boats disappearing bottom first as they travel away from you. You agree to that?
Oh no,
That's not a
no, because
perspective word.
no,
You don't agree to that?
You
no, don't
wouldn't.
agree. No, I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna give you a ship going
What?
away. I'm not
Can I
because
This
ask you
is
a
why? You
like
know
question?
what? You know what? Here,
grade
let me tell you why
5.
I'm not gonna do that. I grew up in Savannah, Georgia. We have the largest port on the East Coast. Watch the ships all day long. Listen, you might see a couple of them here and there in Florida. Largest port on the East Coast. You watch those motherfuckers all day long. All right. Went out to the beach. Did this years ago. This is 2014, 2015. Little brother thinks I'm crazy talking about flat Earth. He's like, "You're fucking insane." I was like, "I used to think the same too." I was like, "But let's come on." Took my $1,000 pair of Zeisses out there. Big old binoculars, boy. These things could see some distance. They were nice. If you know Zeisses, you know Zeisses. So I took my Zeisses out there to the beach, and then I opened up the tracker app, and we watched the ship leave out of the ports, a couple miles up the beachhead. Watched it enter the sound, and head out into the ocean. Tracked it, watched it with our bare eyes, mind you, with our bare eyes, watched it disappear, bottom up. Ship was out of sight. Could not see it anymore. It was unresolvable to the naked eye, gone over the curve of the earth, quote unquote. Pulled up my binoculars, pointed right to where I had last seen the ship. I could read the lettering on the fucking ship. I could see everything again. The whole fucking ship came right back into my fucking view. I handed the binoculars to my little brother and I said, "Call me crazy now." He looked through it. He's like, "Holy shit." He looked at me and I said, "Yeah, I didn't think so either till I did it."
Did you wait till it disappeared another time and then you couldn't see
Dude,
it?
it was 13 miles out on the tracker. 13 miles out on
And
the
how
fucking
were you?
tracker, and I
And
was
how
able to
were you?
bring it back.
And
I'm on
how
the
were you?
beach. I'm on the beach. I'm on
I don't believe
water
you.
level. I don't give a fuck if you believe me or not.
You're
Do it
full
for
of
your
shit.
fucking self. I don't want you to believe me, you stupid fucking cocksucker. I want you to
You're
get
full of
off
shit,
your fat
dude.
fucking lazy ass and go out and do it for yourself.
I've done it myself.
No,
Whenever I
you
went
haven't.
deep sea fishing in North Carolina off the coast, where the Wright
No, you didn't.
brothers flew, the houses disappeared in mere minutes, and you could not bring them back with any optics whatsoever. You're full of crap. That's
I'm not
absolute
full of crap.
bullshit. You might be able to bring them back if like it's gone through some haze or something, and then you can zoom in a little bit. But the notion is so that's hilarious. We're even denying that. Okay, whatever. But the typical distance to the horizon. Why was the black swan such a big deal? Because it was actually something that fucked with the notion of the typical distance to the horizon being what the globe says it typically is, right? If I'm standing on the beach and I want to know where the horizon is, I can tell you exactly where the horizon is using globe geometry. Like that's just how it's
And you'd
always
be
been.
wrong. And you'd be wrong every time.
No,
You'd
I
be
wouldn't be
wrong
wrong.
every
That's
time.
why Black Swan was such a big.
Yeah.
That's why the Black Swan was such a big deal.
Yeah, all right, dude.
So
I'm
Star
I'm not. I'm
Trails.
just not going to argue with you. Listen, we can
Would you have
falsify
Star
your.
Trails?
We could falsify your 8 inch per square mile everywhere we go out and survey. It's a philosophical model that is
No.
used. It is a philosophical model that is used to take all surveys and transform them. You are not going to measure a consistent curve anywhere you go in this world. And if you think you do, I will give you a lesson and we could bring Shoe Bill in here while I fucking do it. Because I know survey in and out just as well as he does.
So Star
You do
Trails.
not measure that. Sorry.
Would you see Star Trails? Or I will
Star
say,
Trails don't have anything to do with what we were
we'll
just
say
talking about. I'm
I
not going to
don't.
allow you to reframe the argument and run off
I'm not
somewhere else. We
reframing the
were talking
argument.
about one very specific thing, and I don't really give a fuck about what else you have to go on to. We were
I'm
talking
telling
about
you.
one.
I'm telling you things that you would observe if the Earth were a globe.
Don't
We talked
care
about
what you say.
shadow.
If you see this globe, no, I don't play that
What do you?
game.
You don't
If
care
you see
about
this globe, if you see
if
this globe, no, I don't subscribe to your way of thinking. Just because you make sense of something one way does not mean that's the only way to make sense of it. And then when you deny
no,
anything
it's
that goes
not.
against what you believe,
I'm not
you
saying
know what
it's
I
the
mean?
only one way to make sense of it. I'll give you
It
you
is.
can have more than one way to make sense of it. I'll give you that. But the way that you guys make sense of it is never because the Earth is flat.
You
Can I
guys.
ask you a question?
Did you just say you
What?
guys?
You guys,
Like I will stab you right in the fucking jugular.
what do you mean? Because I
So,
said you guys.
I'm not you guys, bro. I'm not.
You know what I mean. Flat Earthers. The answer is
No,
never because the
no.
Earth is flat.
can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Why do we see boats floating over the water?
Like a mirage. Because of
Okay, so it's mirage.
well, that's due to some crazy refraction. Just same way you see the sky on the road when it's really hot.
Magical bendy light when they need it. Oh,
Magical.
your
Actually,
observation
Magical.
no.
couldn't have made sense.
Actually,
Let me show you one where we falsify yours. Oh, magical bendy light refraction.
Yes, take the most
yeah. So,
absurd
like,
example.
have you ever thought the idea that maybe the boats disappearing bottom up is the same principle of why we see the boats floating over the water? Have you ever put two and two together like that?
Well, seeing boats floating over the water is a extreme case, and I've never personally seen that in my life.
I've
Did you
seen
grow
I've
up
seen
on
it
the
actually
coast?
many times. Most of the
I
time.
see it.
Well,
Yeah,
you
going
really
out.
need a telescope. You need
You
some
go
type of
out.
telescope to really actually see it.
Oh, I've never seen it in my life. Will you give me
Pretty
pole
common.
stars?
So
Will you give me
either
pole stars?
way,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
huh? Wait, either way, like, couldn't you put two and two together to say that might be the same effect as why we see boats going over the horizon, disappearing bottom
Sure.
up or whatever?
Sure. If there wasn't 20 other things,
Okay, so what's your next one?
uh, pole stars.
The fact that the star never moves at the pole is evidence of a globe?
Well, you have two antipodal pole stars,
Well,
one in
you
the north and
can't
one in the
even see
south.
the other one. The
It
one
was
in the
still,
south, the Sigma Arcturus,
yeah,
is like not visible.
it still rotates around a pole. The point remains whether there's a star there or not. There's a pole which stars rotate around.
Are you trying to make an insinuation about the surface because of that?
I'm saying this is a consequence if the Earth were a globe. These are consequences you would see because of that.
So because I'm looking at the streetlight up over by my neighbor's yard and it's purple, that means that the sidewalk I'm standing on is concrete.
No, I don't know how you would get that from anything
Yeah,
I've said.
I don't know how you would get that either.
Um, so you don't think that's correct? You don't think that if we lived on a globe, there would be two poles which stars rotated around?
I think using
No.
something in the sky to tell you something about the ground is asinine, personally.
Why? Why?
Because usually when you measure something, you measure the object, right?
Well, you always use references, right? So you reference one thing to another thing. So why can't we use the sky as a reference? You seem to be using a special pleading fallacy, right? We can do it with anything else we see except the sky. But this is the consequence. It's just a consequence of having a rotating globe. There's two poles, one at the top, one at the bottom. It's really simple as that.
Why
Now,
don't?
I don't think it's
Well,
simple. I
you have
showed
to
you a
prove it's
video.
rotating. You have to prove it's rotating for that whole model to work.
And then so that would be a consequence. Well, I'm just saying these are consequences of things you would see. So it's like evidences, right?
You
20
also would see a star in the north that doesn't move and is in the same spot every year.
If it was
We weren't moving through
if it
space.
was exactly at the pole,
What?
but if it was exactly at the pole, but
It
not
doesn't
if it,
matter where it's at. You'd
why
have
why would
you'd have stars that never move. You see the same stars every year after year, if
you
you
do
really lived on the biblical model Earth.
you do see
Yeah.
the same stars year after year.
Exactly.
Yeah, correct.
Why is that a
So
problem?
Because if you're on the left side of the sun,
welcome to the flat Earth.
I don't
you're on
Because
the
it's
understand
left
happening
that.
at
side
a
of the
flat Earth.
sun.
So that's a working on both models there. So that's a debunk already. Move on to the next one because your stars are not
Okay.
doing it.
Well,
Your
let me
Okay.
stars
explain
don't
it to him
measure.
because he might not like
Stars do not
visualize it.
measure shape. Stars do not measure shape.
And
Let's
I'll say
move on because you're
and
not
I'll say
measuring shape
notice.
with stars.
I
Okay.
agree. I
Sorry.
agree. But
Okay,
let me
but
just try to if I could real quick, like if you're looking at, let's say, the Earth from far away, and let's say you're looking at the sun from far away, and the Earth is on the left side of the sun, right? And we're seeing those constellations for half of the year or whatever. Let's just say we're on the left side and we're just looking at the sun. Then on
yep,
the other half of the year, on the other 6 months, when we're on the right side of the sun, we should be seeing different constellations.
we do. That's one of my evidences.
Yeah, they're the same. We always see the same constellation.
No, they're not.
No.
The background star constellations shift about 1 degree per day. I
1
don't know.
degree per day.
Yeah, so it
Yeah,
takes us
I'm thinking of
360.
0.0001, if anything.
Well, it takes us 365 days to circle the sun.
Oh, you mean okay. I was thinking per year, sorry. I thought you
Yeah,
meant
yeah.
1 degree in actual location, like that it would be permanently off.
No,
But
no.
yeah, so with
never.
the stars do move in the seasons, right?
Yeah.
And, every year we see the same exact stars.
Right.
Yeah,
If
based
we
on the
were really, like,
day.
flying through space, wouldn't you expect to see different stars each year?
Well, no, because
No.
we're in the same galaxy as those stars.
Yeah, but those are even rotating.
Yeah,
They're
yeah, but
rotating
we're
around a
all
galaxy,
moving
and those stars
together.
are moving as well. but they're always in the same spot.
You remember when you were a kid and there was like a really, really tall tower and you were driving down the highway and you're like, Mom, that tower's following us. Like it doesn't seem to be moving whatsoever. Right? I know we've all. I'm sorry?
No, it would move. Maybe the moon would be like that, not a pole.
Well, I mean, I'm talking about. I don't know if other people didn't have this experience as they were kids, but I did. I remember I'd always see like a large like antenna tower off in the distance, and we'd be driving from one town to another 30 miles, and I could see this tower for like the main time, like most of the time we were going, and it's like the tower never moved. It didn't seem to move, and that's just on Earth.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we haven't finished your
Or
list,
like
but I would add that to our list in terms of like a list of things that would support biblical cosmology. The stars, you see the same ones every year.
Okay, you want to add that to yours? Go ahead, but that's still something that you would observe if the Earth were a globe rotating.
No,
According
it's
to
not.
the
You
that's
need
that's
all
wrong.
kinds of special circumstances, which is why your whole fucking cosmology falls apart when you go into that size, because everything starts to fall apart. It does not work. It is not, oh, you would expect to see this on a globe. Y'all can't explain at all. In fact, it doesn't work, which is why you're constantly fidgeting with the model, because the background stars, as you call them, we
but it
can't
does
make
work.
sense of what's going on.
Well, you
So no,
explain.
you're not
You
just going to
explain how the
gloss
stars work
right
on a
past it
flat
and
Earth.
go, oh, that
You
proves globe.
explain
Fuck off.
and show us proof.
It's an if-then statement, right? If the Earth circles the sun, then we would expect about a 1 degree shift in the background stars every day.
No, you wouldn't. There's absolutely no reason ever at any point in time ever for you to say, because globe, we expect to see this. No, you have a bunch of observations where you fucking observe something, and then what you said was, okay, we observed all these things, now let's build it to the globe. You didn't say, because it's a globe, this is what we expect. And that's what I hate about this argument. You act like you're so scientific about it. You take thousands of years of observations. You say, because globe this, let's work out everything. And then you rearrange the argument and you say, we would expect, because, like, no the fuck. You reverse engineered all of this stuff. This is all observations made over time, and then you said, oh, this is what's working, let's apply this to the globe philosophically. But you didn't
What's wrong
say,
with reverse
oh,
engineering?
it's the way that you lie and framing your argument. You don't listen. You don't even care to listen. You have no integrity whatsoever. You're not an
I
honest
don't
person.
understand
I'm
what's.
done. Good night.
I mean, it's just an observation. It's just
exactly.
Ricky, do you have any like
it is an observation.
predictive
You didn't
evidence?
calculate shit.
Is there a prediction instead of just a postdiction where we see this happening, therefore this is what must be happening?
So you want me to come up with a brand
There's
new
a lot of
prediction after
postdictions.
we've been what 1,000 years of science? Do you want me to come up with a brand new prediction for the globe?
No, any prediction ever. There wasn't like some postdiction.
Correct. One second. 1,000 years of science? No, there's only been 500 years of science. The
Well, I'm pretty
terminology of
sure
science only came up about 500 years ago.
the golden age of Islam was about 1,000 years ago. Al-Biruni.
Science
1,000
was
years
a formative
ago
term used by Francis Bacon in order to create the terminology and the framework of understanding the material world.
So here's a
There's no
prediction that we had that came true
500 years
recently. 24-hour sun in the north and the south. So there's a
Or was that a
prediction.
postdiction?
What do you mean? That was the whole reason for the trip, because we predicted.
What do you think the sky is, bro? What do you think the sky is?
What I think the sky is? What do you mean? What do I think the sky is?
What do you think the sky is? Like,
It's
you're making claims about the sky.
physical
What
objects.
is it?
Physical objects. that
Physical
emit light.
objects. You think you can land on those objects?
Some of them.
Congratulations. You've already said it. You post hocted the whole thing, man. Like, you're already in the problem.
Well, typically things that emit light are
Created a
physical.
He
material.
wants to be the smartest guy in the room. He's not actually trying to have a conversation.
Check the video.
I'm trying to have
back to what 50 was saying about the 24-hour sun.
You guys aren't even giving me the 24-hour sun. It literally happened 4 months ago. It was a prediction they had a whole trip. It was a whole thing. Witsit was even on here. You won't even give me.
What is the sky, bro?
if you think that 24-hour sun correlates to like shape, size, or motion of the Earth, bro, I'm sorry, it just doesn't at all.
All the flat earthers were ready before they even went there to observe the 24-hour sun. You were all ready to find an excuse.
No, what is the sky? What is the sky in your interpretation? Formally, outlay it to me.
Atmosphere, air, stuff. It's
Out
atmosphere
like
until
what
it's
we like.
until
So
it's a
just think about
vacuum.
this for a sec. For the place that you are now, you've got an up and a down, right? And then you're going to go up into the sky, and you're going to go find a new down. You're going to go find a down somewhere else over there, made of material things that you think that you like. You're just the composition of what the Earth is, and then you're just going to transpose that over to some other place in the sky. Is this all just a trick of imagination, man? It's very. You've never
You
seen
don't
this.
believe you don't believe your eyeballs?
Understand.
You don't believe your eyeballs, Neil? Trust your senses,
I
man.
can see light in the sky. It doesn't mean it's a material substance I can go land myself on.
When have you ever seen a material substance that you couldn't land on?
I have seen light come from nothing.
What?
That's what I've seen. Well,
when
seemingly nothing.
When have you seen light come from nothing?
Have you seen those little like crab little creatures, like the little shrimp thing with the pistol shrimp?
Sure.
It fires off its shrimp like little pistol thing, and all of a sudden this sonoluminescence appears.
Yes, from the water.
Are you saying stars are made of shrimp asses?
No, but like they're performing something of an aspect of physics. And then
exactly.
you tell me, however, in the sky, like for you to assume that there's a material substance in the sky, when I could just point to a pistol shrimp and say, hey, look, light comes from this little thing like spitting off like movement.
It's a physical thing, doing a physical action in the physical world. The light is coming from the interaction of interface with water.
You're just inferring that the substance, the material world within which you exist, is actually up there in the sky. That's all that's really going on here. And this is imagination land. You're never going to get away from this, man. You're never going to experience the globe. We're never going to get off the social planning.
Can I interject there? That actually, it's a really good example that the pistol fish thing. That in a world where it's so full of crazy magnificence that is beyond understanding, why can that not stretch beyond the world? It doesn't always make sense. It doesn't make sense, all the madness that goes on in the sea and these mad creatures and stuff. So why
you guys invoke massive helium balloons that are exploding on a nucleus timescale with neutron stars and black holes. So I mean, like, who's crazier here, right? I'm just saying that there's something to do with sound in space, and it causes like a light phenomenon in the sky. But you want to invoke the fact that there's this like cosmic Battlestar Galactica thing going on, like with all the supernova. like, I'm not crazy, man. You guys, like, we're all in the middle ground here, as far as I'm concerned, anyway.
Okay. Different stars and different. How about this? Would you expect to see different stars in different hemispheres of the Earth or globe?
You would definitely expect different stars at different points in the year, for sure.
Yes, but in hemispheres as well, right? So, okay. Different stars and different. How about this? Would you expect to see different stars in different hemispheres of the Earth or globe?
You would definitely expect different stars at different points in the year, for sure.
Yes, but in hemispheres as well, right? So if you're in the northern hemisphere, you have different set of stars than if you're in the southern hemisphere. That's a consequence of the Earth being a globe. Or if the Earth were a globe, you would expect to see different stars in different hemispheres.
No, you're just assuming. They could just be too far away for you to view. Like, you're just assuming things, bro.
Too far away for you to view.
Yeah,
what?
correct.
Can I say something real quick?
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, if we were on a flat stationary plane, or on a biblical cosmological accurate Earth, or however you say that, what we would expect is to see too far. We would expect to also feel no motion and just seem like that's the plane we're living on, right? And we'd also expect to see the same stars every year and the sun move in the same pattern across the sky. Based on the Bible talking about the greater and the lesser light, we would expect to see the sun and the moon approximately the same size, and then many other things like Polaris, everything moving around it as a central point. And